spread the word. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. I'm Teresa Ferguson. I'm the Executive Director of AustinUP, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our second in a series, the Age-Friendly Austin Forum series, where we are talking about the Age-Friendly Austin Plan and the domains of livability, which it's based on. One of those domains is housing. That's one of the most popular topics. When we were forming the City of Austin, AARP, and different AustinUP and different nonprofits, when we were creating the Age-Friendly Austin Plan back in 2015, 2016, housing was an essential topic, very important topic, and the topic that got the most interest. And it's only worse or more intense now because of the housing market in Austin. And a lot of older adults are moving here and wondering, where are they going to live affordably? And that's what today's panel is all about. We put some instructions in the chat box about how to watch. Keep your audio on mute, please. There will be opportunities for you to ask questions. You can unmute yourselves to ask questions after the panelist has spoken, after the panel. You can also put your questions in the chat box. We're good. But right now, though, make sure your audio is on mute. Let's see, anything else there? Yeah. So right now, it's just my pleasure to introduce Peter Varteressian. He's the co-chair of the City of Austin Commission on Seniors, and he's also the chair of the work group that's overseeing implementation of the Age-Friendly Austin Plan in the areas of housing, transportation, and outdoor spaces and buildings. So I can't think of a better moderator for this panel. Peter, take it away.
Thank you so much, Teresa. I can think of a few better people to do it, but I'm glad to be able to have this opportunity. I am joined today with three distinguished panelists, and they are going to be able to hopefully fill us in on some information that can be useful in this big topic. Again, as part of the forum is aging in place affordably. And without any further ado, I'd like to introduce the panelists real quickly, and then each one of them will have a moment or two to talk about what they're doing. Letitia Brown-Moore is with the City of Austin. She is the Community Development Manager for the city's Housing and Planning Department. Jennifer Hammer is with Silvernest. She's the Director of Strategic Partnerships. And over in the corner down here, Tommi Ferguson is the Executive Director of Capital City Village. And at this point, I'm sure that you don't really want to listen to me, so let's get down to the important panelists here. Letitia, would you like to take over and provide us some information?
I will. Good afternoon. I'm going to share my screen.
Isn't technology a wonderful thing?
I know, right? Let me try another way. It's not doing it. We'll let someone else start and then I'll catch up on the next round.
Well,
that's okay.
All right, that'll be fine.
Okay.
Tommi Ferguson, would you be willing to pick up right quick, and then we'll make sure that we get back to you in just a few moments.
Sure, I will give it a shot. We'll see how cooperative my technology is today. Thanks, everyone. I'm really glad to be here. I really appreciate the invitation to participate. As they mentioned, my name is Tommi Ferguson. I'm the Executive Director of Capital City Village, And I'll be explaining a little bit about what Capital City Village is and what we do. We are a local nonprofit. We focus on providing a mix of programs and services for Austin seniors so that they can hopefully age well in their homes for as long as possible with these additional supports. So I will go through just a few slides to give you a bit of flavor about what Capital City Village does, and would, of course, after the presentations, would welcome your questions. So I'll give you just a little bit of setup here. So this is a slide that some of you may have seen before. I'm sure some of you have. And this is sort of just a snapshot of what our current aging population looks like, with, of course, the big influencers being the baby boomers, who are, turning 65 plus at a rate of, what did I hear, like 10,000 a day at one point. So just to kind of give you an example of the impact of this generation, but not just this generation, but also the longevity that current seniors are experiencing, and sort of as the pre-senior group up and coming, so the future generations will also have an impact on our aging population. So right now, there's about 14% of the US that is 65 plus. And that is, 65 is not what it used to be, but it is still our sort of line of demarcation for sort of those age eligible programs. And so that's generally the marker that we point to. But that's going to grow. And so just inside of the next 15 years, the 65 plus population will represent 1 in 5 of our entire population, so 1/5. And that really is unprecedented in human history. And so that's something that, again, the combination of a really large population of baby boomers aging, as well as people generally living longer, is going to have a huge influence on our overall population. It is increasingly here in the US ethnically and racially diverse, and that these changing demographics really require us to be a little bit more open-minded about how we think about the aging population. And to bring it a little bit more locally, generally speaking, we can also think of Texas almost as a nation of its own. So these two side-by-side pictures, they come from a demographics report from the Texas.gov. And so this looks at our population of seniors, again, 65 plus, in 2020, and these are county outlines. So that's the presence of 65 plus by the concentration in different counties in the year 2000 and what's projected for the year 2040. So you can see there will be a really significant increase in the proportion of 65 plus people across the board in Texas. So it is a young state, but it's got the 3rd largest population of older adults in the US. And Austin specifically, as I believe, the 2nd fastest growing center of 65 plus seniors across the country. And I believe the fastest growing center of pre-seniors, so those folks that are not quite 65, but roughly 55 to 64. There are 3 million Texans age 65 plus, and that's, again, 65 plus in Texas. To put that in proportion, there are 20 states across the US that have a total population of less than 3 million. So really, the senior population in Texas is almost like a whole state on its own. And again, this is projected to grow. So in part, what do we do about this aging population? Well, I think what we do is we realize that, I think as Sally Van Sickle has said before, that the aging population is a reservoir. This is not the silver tsunami. This is really an opportunity to tap the experiences, the knowledge, the wealth of information that the senior population has. So this focus is really on housing, but I wanted to explain a little bit how the village concept fits into that. And I got really interested in the village model when I was in grad school and thinking about how my own parents, who had lived in their home in Amarillo, Texas, that they moved into new in 1962, how they were going to successfully age in place. And they've both passed now, but that really was the spark that got me interested in how to make people, make opportunities for people to age well in their own homes, their homes of choice. So I wanted to explain to you a little bit about the village concept. So Capital City Village, again, is a local nonprofit. We were established in 2011. And we look at it as sort of a three-pronged approach to aging well at home. So we have people-centered volunteer services, which include transportation, home fix-its, a lot of technology help this last year. We have enriching programs that keep people socially connected as well as informed about issues around them. And then we have access to service providers and additional community supports that we can offer to help people age well at home. The village concept, again, we're focused on keeping people in the home of their choice, which for a lot of folks, and again, AARP surveys repeat this almost year in, year out, that close to 90% of people, when they're surveyed, really want to stay in their home, the home that they already currently reside in. So what is the best way to keep them there? Well, it's really by putting together a virtual village, a structure, a nonprofit support of volunteers, additional seniors, and some staff to help facilitate things to really bring programs and services to them where they live, rather than having them upend their entire lives to make a move to a more supportive environment. So it's a lot of neighbors helping neighbors. It is member driven. So the seniors themselves make decisions about the programs, the services, all of the supports that they want to see in place. It is intergenerational. Even within our senior group, we have a couple of generations ranging in age from 60 to our most advanced senior is 102 this year. And it is affordable. And that really is part of the focus of this program today, because keeping you in the home that you already own or that you have already established some affordability threshold for, that really can make a huge difference rather than having to go to a new home environment or to bring in a lot of services here and there at a cost that may be unbearable. And so really we want to make sure that the services and programs that you might need to age well in your home are available. We offer a sliding scale for our membership so that people who are very financially comfortable can find a level that they're okay with, and that also people who live on very modest incomes, perhaps just Social Security alone, we can also find a sliding scale level of dues that will help them as well. We go to volunteers first for all the services that we provide. Our volunteers are all background screened and safety checked so that you know that you're getting matched up with somebody that's reliable and friendly. And our model is largely self-sustaining, so that we have our own income that we bring in through fundraising, some through membership dues, some through grants and donations. But again, we really sustain ourselves as a nonprofit organization. And I would like to just say also that we are part of a national village movement. So right now there are more than 250 similar organizations across the country, and more popping up every day. There is basically what we all have in common is that we provide programs for engagement and enrichment and connection, and we provide volunteer services to support people aging in their own homes. And that's really the way that we approach it, and all of those organizations have that in common. We all are open to people of all backgrounds and economic means, and we all try to offer opportunities for growth, connection, and purpose. And this is a little bit about what Capital City Village does specifically. We have a number of programs and services and partners that we stay connected to. So again, these programs are somewhat aimed at keeping people socially connected so that they can avoid isolation in their homes. But a lot of it is sort of becoming more informed about the important issues around you. So a lot of health and wellness talks, a lot of information from local notables. You can see here Peter Bay with the Austin Symphony pictured in this slide. So we try to have informational talks at least once or twice a month, basically to keep people engaged and aware of what's going on in their community. In our village, we really try to reflect the village or the community that we serve. We connect because it's absolutely necessary. There is no one solution. We connect with a lot of partners in the community, the UT School of Social Work, various communities of faith, various other nonprofit organizations serving seniors. And in that way, we feel like we complement what other organizations are doing in the community again, there is no one solution and we don't provide it, but with those supports and with those connections to others, we feel like we can provide a platform for helping people age in their own homes. And generally speaking, that is often the most affordable approach. As far as the volunteer support, housing, yes, is very much a part of what we try to help solve, but transportation is a huge issue too. And we try to help get people to medical appointments, grocery shopping, even during non-COVID times, social outings, and even some of our own programs. So you can see that we provide more than 750 rides per year. Other volunteer services, again, including home and yard, referrals to community resources, and a really big focus on technology during COVID, more than 2,000 hours of volunteer help each year. And I wanted to just focus the way that the village concept, again, a nonprofit helping keep seniors in their homes, the way that that really addresses the domains of age friendliness includes housing, transportation, community support, social participation, and even communication and information. So that housing piece, I really think, is at the center of it for what we do. But we also do touch on those other impacts that can definitely have a positive influence on a senior's life. I would welcome your questions when there's an opportunity, but I want to make sure I leave plenty of time for the others to speak. That's my contact information there. If you have anything in follow-up, I would be happy to talk with you more. I appreciate the time to let you know a little bit more about what we're up to.
Thank you, Tommi. Thank you very much. Jennifer, would you be prepared to start?
I sure am. Let me
Ready.
pull this up for you. We'll just start from the beginning. So my name is Jennifer Himmer, and I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships for Silvernest. And I'm so excited. Tommi just set things up so perfectly with her intro to the Village Network. We're strategic partners on a national level, and Tommi and I have met several times, and the mission is so good, and I think complementary to what we're doing here at Silvernest. So this is Suzanne. This is kind of a person maybe a lot of us are familiar with. She's 67, very independent, lives alone. She's self-employed right now, but she's got a lot of financial pressure. And that chart that Tommi showed earlier about the aging population, part of the bummer about that chart right now is because people are living longer, the financial pressure is becoming greater because most people don't have enough saved for retirement and to live that long life and to stay in their homes. Just, most people this age also own their home and want to stay in it. And there's millions more. And I think it's up to 11,000 a day in this country are turning 65. So we're going to see this just continuing for a very long time. Since this is housing, I kind of wanted to put some housing solutions forward. There's 3 that I know of. One is inaction. It's probably the worst one. It's the most expensive, really, of all of the solutions. And it's kind of what's happening. Things are stalled in housing right now. And doing nothing is the worst thing we can do. There's new construction, there's affordable housing being built, senior housing being built, but we're not going to be able to build our way out of this. My sister's actually an affordable housing developer in Texas, and we talk about this all the time. There's a need for it, but it's not going to be enough. And it is, it gets wrapped up in a lot of legislation, and it's just not scalable for what we're going to need. I work for a company that does home sharing, and I would submit this is a very complementary solution, not only to new construction, but to the village movement and aging in place. So it's something that addresses all of these issues that this whole series talks about: housing, finances, aging, social challenges, isolation and loneliness, things like that. And it's something that we've all maybe done before, or at least know someone that's done it, but we did it maybe earlier in our lives. And it's having a roommate. And it's a simple solution, but there's some problems with having a roommate out there right now. If you just kind of go out into the ether and say, put on Facebook or hit Craigslist and look around, there's a lot of things that are not going to happen for you. And when you're going to share a home, it's very personal. And so from the get-go, the secret is to make sure the person that's in the house with you is compatible with you. And then when you find that compatible person, have some conversations, just like any relationship. If you set some boundaries from the beginning, have some tough conversations. It just prevents so many misunderstandings and makes things so much easier. And it's, molehills don't turn into those mountains. And finally, just how do we protect ourselves? How do we protect our privacy? How do we, do this securely and, with some security measures in place? And how do we protect our actual things? Because this also is, when you're living together, there are things that we need to protect. Furniture, your jewelry, all kinds of stuff. So this is where and I'm lucky enough to be in the partnerships part of Silvernest. So I get to partner with nonprofits and governments all the time. And we come in and we scale this. So, here's my alliterative slide, I guess. We're secure, streamlined, scalable, and savvy. And we do take security very seriously. So just, there's background screens on the homeowner and housemate side. All the messaging done on our platform is secure. You never give away any information, ID verification. You do everything on our platform. You never leave to go do to get your matches, or you don't have to leave to go do a background screen. Everything is right there. We are nationwide. We have inventory. Some of our inventory is more robust in certain parts of the country than others, but if a city or a nonprofit wants to bring in a home sharing program, we can certainly do that without a problem. And then finally, we're really savvy. We're really good at what we do. We do home sharing, and we don't just say, here's your match and best of luck to you. We stay with you through the entire process. I can talk a little bit more about that, but we've really built our platform to know where people are at, whether you sign up as a homeowner with extra room in your home or someone looking for an extra room. We really know how to help you through the process, no matter where you are, just beginning, middle, found a roommate, living together, all those things. So this is a very quick slide of this is what it looks like if you just come into silvernest.com. It looks a little, if anyone's interested later, that slide's always skippy. I can talk about our partnerships, but this is our just user flow. So you're going to post a profile, you're going to sign up as a homeowner. I have extra room in my house, or a housemate. So I'm looking for a flexible, affordable living arrangement. We send you matches. We'll say, hey, Tommi is an 83% match with Jennifer. Sorry, I'm just going to pick on you all day, Tommi. And you can choose whether or not to engage with the people we send you. When you find that person, you can create a lease, which is kind of the nuts and bolts. This is how long, this is how much. And then a house rules document, which says, hey, can we do laundry after 10 p.m.? Are we sharing ketchup? Can I use the grill? Can I store stuff in your garage? Just all those basic things. Let's get that out of the way. And then when you sign that lease, you can automatically deduct your rent. And this is where Silvernest fee comes in. We take 5% of that rent. So let's say, for example, rent is $500. We would take a $25 fee, and that keeps you on our platform. It keeps all of your leases and things online. Keeps the auto rent payments going. And we also have an insurance product, which I can talk about later if there's questions, but basically it's a $10,000 insurance coverage for the housemates items and $100,000 for the homeowner. And that sits on top of the homeowner's policy for any damage the housemate does. And it's automatic and there's no deductible. So it's a really good way to kind of protect your belongings. This is a really quick snapshot nationwide of our users. Skews a little bit differently, depending on what part of the country you're in, but our users tend to be female. Homeowners are a little older at 65, housemates are 53. And you can, if you're a homeowner, you can indicate that, hey, if everything looks great, but that budget maybe isn't matching, 40% of our homeowners do say, hey, I'll consider reducing the rent for non-medical, non-licensed help around the house. So that things we would, I think, classify as chores, some light housekeeping, cooking, dog walking, things like that. And then intergenerational opportunities, we did a survey of our platform, and there's about a 25% chance that, if you really want an intergenerational opportunity, you can find somebody to live with that's maybe a grad student or something like that. Although anecdotally, a lot of people that I've talked to on our platform say, oh, I've raised my children. I don't need to live with a 20-year-old, but there's plenty of people out there that would love to have a grad student too. It's I love talking to our users. They're really great. So this is kind of a little bit of another snapshot and maybe a little brag, but this really, home sharing hits a lot of points. So obviously there's an income, right? So you're going to save money on market rate housing. You're going to create income immediately within 30 days of signing that lease. The homeowner has income. And it really gives you a lot of choice. We're never going to tell you who to live with or for how long or how much to charge. We're going to help you with a lot of advice, but ultimately, this is your choice. It's empowering to live the way you want to live and say, hey, yeah, I'm willing to home share for 3 months or 6 months or a year. And we guide you through all that. We all know social isolation and loneliness is really detrimental to our health, mental health and physical health. So, just having another person in that house with you is so meaningful, and somebody that maybe could have a cup of coffee with you once in a while, or just share a meal. You could finish a whole salad that you got at Costco instead of throwing half of it away. It's great. And there's just, more disposable income to do fun things with your life. It could be used to pay bills, but maybe to go take a trip or save for retirement. We have significant impact around the country, over 11,000 rooms rented, $54 million in financial gain. That's kind of the income plus the savings of the renters. And we are conservatively, let me do a time check too. Okay. Conservatively estimating about $14 million in federal healthcare reduction, which is significant. So who does home sharing help? A lot of people, empty nesters, boomers. I home shared after my children left for college. I was single and my kids were gone and I had 4 bedrooms, and it changed my life. It's the best decision I've made in my 50s. But we have teachers that do this. They want to live, these early teachers, they want to live in the community where they teach. If maybe someone after that Texas freeze, people were saying, how can I help? Well, you could help someone who's maybe displaced by what we help people who were displaced by wildfires in Oregon. So there's just so many applications for this. I'd love to talk to anybody or answer any questions later. If anyone has ideas, it's my favorite thing to do is talk about how amazing home sharing can be and how flexible and just really an empowering choice. So if anyone's interested, these are just 3 quick slides and then I'll wrap up. Home Share Oregon is a partnership we have with the state of Oregon. That was the one actually initially it was used for affordable housing to create more stock, but we quickly pivoted during the wildfires and helped people find places to live that were displaced. Home Share South Bay is down near the Los Angeles area. It was actually funded under Homelessness Prevention Innovation Funds. They said, hey, it's a lot less expensive for us to prevent homelessness than it is once someone becomes homeless. There's so many more services and support and money that's needed then. So we are trying to prevent homelessness in Southern California with home sharing. And finally, Montgomery County is right here north. I'm in Alexandria, Virginia right now, but I am a native Texan and I miss my home state. Montgomery County is just north of DC, and it is a HUD approved housing counseling agency that has decided, hey, we could add home sharing to our suite of services to prevent foreclosure and forbearance, because it's a lot less expensive to help someone just gap some income, because maybe they're on a fixed income and property taxes have gone up and we just need a few $100 extra a month to stay in our home. So really proud of that one. It just launched and it's doing really well. So that's all for me. I'll stop there, and Letitia, I will turn it over to you.
Letitia, are you ready?
Yes, I am going to be. Please, please, please. It keeps asking me to connect to OneDrive.
I get that annoying message regularly.
I know
just
it's
ignore it.
like we did it perfectly during warm up.
Well, if it doesn't open up, you want to talk about what you do.
I will. Yes. So my name is Letitia Brown. I am the Community Development Manager for Housing and Planning Department. So we offer home repair services, information, education, in order for people to have affordable housing and to be aware of different tactics from investors, pressures of gentrification, because we too want people to age in place. We want people to have affordable housing. So therefore, our resources are, we provide, as a result of Storm Uri, we have the Emergency Home Repair Program. We have Home Repair Loan Program. We have a General Obligation Bond funded program. Our programs range from about $5,000 to $75,000. We provide services under our architectural barrier removal program, which is for elderly people and people with disabilities. We do tub to shower conversions, shower wands, flooring, in order for people to be able to move about in their property safely. So that's one of the bigger programs for seniors, is our architectural barrier removal program. We provide services to renters and to homeowners as well. We have, let's see, some of our other programs. Minor home repair program, that goes up to $5,000, where we just come in, emergency situation, a minor code electrical problem, we'll come in and provide some minor home repairs. Under our general obligation bond funded home repair program, we provide up to $20,000 in services to address health and safety hazards. For example, you have ripped carpet. That's a tripping hazard. So we can come in, and historically we haven't been able to address cosmetic repairs. However, if it creates a barrier or hazard, we can address those repairs. On our home repair loan program, that is the only program where we place a lien against the property, and it goes up to $75,000. If $75,000, if it is not feasible to invest that type of money into a property for major systems, roofing, electrical, plumbing, foundation, we can demolish the house and rebuild the property, as long as it doesn't exceed $130,000 in assistance. Kind of hard to build a property, rebuild a property for that amount, but we do serve quite a few under our $75,000 program. We work in conjunction with Code. We make referrals to Austin Energy. They make referrals to us. We are a part of the Home Repair Coalition, where we work with Travis County, other city departments, and we meet on a monthly basis to identify, needed services in different neighborhoods. Again, one of the things I mentioned was that we provide resources. However, we are a source of information for the community. We talk to residents about filing tax exemptions. We talk to residents about not being caught up with investors. Investors have very hard tactics that they use in order to, it ends up displacing our citizens. So that's pretty much what we do. And those are the services that we offer. And we really do work with other nonprofit organizations and getting information out and being able to answer their questions. So that's pretty much it.
All right. Thank you so much, Letitia.
Mm-hmm.
I might remind each of the panelists that, here we go.
There we go. Austin is my home. I knew it would do exactly what I thought it would do. So I do believe that I covered everything looking at the slide. Oh, one thing I didn't mention is that most of our programs provide assistance to households that are 80% median family income. That's for like a family of four. You cannot exceed $78,100 in income. And we see it quite often. We're able to serve quite a few citizens under our programs, and they don't exceed that income requirement. But all the other programs I covered.
All right. Thank you very much, Letitia.
Sure.
I'd like to remind everybody that there are a lot of people asking questions in the chat group. So well, I'm sure all of us will want to pay attention to that. I do have a few questions, and we don't have a tremendous amount of time, but I'm going to start with this first question and throw it out to the panelists to see what you might think about that. Many older adults want to stay in their homes as they age. What are some of the barriers to aging in place, and how do your programs specifically address those barriers?
I can go. One of the programs I mentioned was the architectural barrier removal program. And basically the way housing is built is not to accommodate people that are disabled. The doors are not as wide as they could be for wheelchairs, to accommodate a wheelchair. Flooring, you may have carpet. Well, the floors need to be hard surface in order to move about. As people get up in age or they become ill, they need assistance with showers. So we do the tub to shower conversions. And then again, we educate people on getting tax deferrals, tax payment plans, filing their tax exemptions in order to get the age exemptions and disability exemptions that are offered by Travis County. Thank you.
Well, and I'll say the barrier that we see, or I guess the reason people come to Silvernest is often a financial normally reason. Every once in a while it's different, but the vast majority of people are searching for ways to make some extra money, and they come to Silvernest. So we help them do that.
Yeah, and I'll say, so this is Tommi with Capital City Village. And, you know, I think some people are attracted to the village model, you know, because it is a sort of a financially sound decision to stay in a home that you either own, or even if you rent, you've established some, you know, comfort with paying that rent every month. But I think it's partly also the social connection, because, you know, you can stay in your home and be healthy physically, but if you don't have those social connections, if you're not able to maintain, you know, contacts and friendships and so forth, and peers in the community, then there's something that will be lacking emotionally. And that eventually will have even perhaps a cognitive effect as well. So I think that there's that social piece. And I think even just functionally, say you stay in your home and maybe you need help changing a hard to reach light bulb, or you need somebody to pick you up after cataract surgery, or you can't necessarily reach the vent or climb up on a ladder as safely as you could. That doesn't mean that you need to move to assisted living right away. You know, that may just mean that a little bit of support here and there is really the ticket. And if that's something about connecting to social programs, or experiencing things that help build information about what's going on in your community, that really keeps you solidly connected. And in a way that you are able to maintain your own autonomy, you can pick and choose what you want and when you want it, so that it's not too much or too little. And it, you know, saves you asking for help from family, perhaps as much as you might otherwise have to, or if you don't have family or friends close by, if you've lost some of those important connections, there is an opportunity to rebuild those and to establish what we like to call improbable friendships.
All right, thank you very much. My second question, and that might cause us to run out of time before we allow the audience to start asking questions. The second question is, everybody knows that Austin's cost of living is rising, and more older adults may be moving out to more of the outlying communities. Do your programs serve the outlying communities, and what's the best way to connect more people to the programs that you have?
Mine's easy. So yes, we do. And silvernest.com. How's that?
It is a .com.
We are a .com. Yes, I do the partnerships with nonprofits, but we are a .com.
Okay.
And this is Tommi. I'll say Capital City Village, our service area is defined as City of Austin. So if you have an Austin address, and that might be everything from Williamson County line up at north of 183 down to Belterra off of 290, that still counts. And so that's our service area. We do have interest from outside of Austin occasionally, and we just don't have the volunteer capacity yet to go that far. But we do encourage people to adapt and adopt the village model. It can be done from a neighborhood perspective, or even a homeowners association can sort of pull in the different things that we utilize, and the structure, the scaffolding, if you will, of what we put together. There's no reason why people can't do it independently or in their own communities and neighborhoods. And we encourage that, and we can certainly help facilitate that.
I think each of you have kind of touched on this last question that I'd like to throw out, but anyway, we can elaborate on it a little bit more. Housing affordability is something that all generations need. Pardon me, not just older adults. Are there some opportunities for intergenerational solutions within your programs?
Okay, I'll go.
All right.
Yes, there are. And we actually have run some pilots with some AmeriCorps members in various cities that were trying to find some housings, and they went housing, and it went really well. We had great success with Teach for America, placing those young teachers in houses in the communities where they were living. And AmeriCorps is recognizing that affordable housing is detrimental to their volunteer staff, because their stipend doesn't normally cover market rate rent in the cities, in some of these higher rent cities. So we're excited to kind of hopefully expand that partnership here in late 2021 and early 2022. So.
And for Capital City Village, ours is intergenerational in a sense that we have a good cadre of younger volunteers that do help our seniors. And we do even have a couple of households within our group that are intergenerational with an adult child living with their parents. So we've got one daughter who's in her 60s, and she lives with her father who's 93, I think, 94. So it does leave open the possibility of intergenerational housing and intergenerational supports as well. It's not the specific goal, but it's sort of one of the added benefits. Yeah, so that's definitely a part of the mix.
All right. Letitia, do you want to add to that? Or I did believe I saw you added contacting 311 might be the best way.
Yes, and then Austin.Texas/Austin is my home for resources.
Right. Well, looks like we have time for one more question for me, and then we'll turn it over to the audience. Homelessness is a big concern in Austin right now. And too many of the older adults are homeless in dangerously close settings. Can your programs help the issue of homelessness?
I'm gonna comment on that, because some people may not make the connection between the lack of home repairs and someone becoming homeless, but I've seen the example more than one time. We have offered assistance. We've provided information to the community. We've marketed the programs. We have a homeowner that just doesn't want to do business with the city, and months later, because of the condition of the property catches on fire. The property caught on fire, and had that person allowed us to provide them the assistance at that time, we could have avoided that. So the property caught on fire. The person tried to work with investors and other folks that they had been approached by in the community, and numerous liens were placed against the property. So the property burned down, liens against the property. There is nothing I can do for that homeowner now. And now that homeowner is sitting on a piece of land and a donated shed from community, from citizens that are in that community. But had we been able to get that assistance early on, we wouldn't have had that problem. That person is homeless.
Either of the other two would like to speak on this topic?
I would say we can help prevent homelessness. There's an estimated 55 million empty bedrooms in this country. I don't know the number for Austin, but I can probably find an estimate if anyone's interested. But, you know, that's where we're hoping what we're doing in South Bay. That's why we're funded under homelessness prevention funds, because preventing it is not only better, it's the right thing to do, but it's actually economically a more sound decision. You're going to spend less money on someone, you know, helping them stay in a home, however that is, through the village movement, through a home repair program, through home sharing, whatever those options are, than you are once someone's homeless. That's a whole new ball game of economics and supportive services that we can't help. So I'm hoping we can keep people in their homes.
Yeah, and I'll echo what Jennifer said. We're not really set up and don't have the capacity or aren't in a position to help people so much once they are homeless, but I think that we do help prevent it to some degree, in as much that with the goal of keeping people in their own homes as long as possible. And that's wherever you call home, whether it's, you know, an additional room in somebody's house, a granny flat, a 2-story home, a condo, an apartment. You know, the longer that we can keep people safe and well supported and happy in their own home, then we prevent that possibility at somewhere down the line. And I will emphasize too that, you know, again, it's even intended for very modest incomes. A good third of our membership lives on less than $25,000 a year. So it may be that they're simply living off of Social Security, and if they own their home, it may be the single biggest asset that they have. So why not keep them in it as long as possible so that they don't have to liquidate it, they don't have to risk losing it, they don't have to impose on family. And, you know, frankly, that saves the entire community some money as well. So again, that is not the goal of, you know, preventing homelessness. I think it's part of one of the factors that goes into play, because some of our folks are really not necessarily at the margins, but they're more at risk than, you know, say the average senior out there. So again, aiming at some ounce of prevention, because yes, once somebody falls into homelessness, then that's, you know, a much bigger issue and a much more complicated issue to try to wrap your head around. So.
Excellent. The audience has been extremely patient, and I believe we've reached the time when it's up to y'all to ask questions of this esteemed panel.
Peter, let's start with someone posted this during Jennifer's presentation. Do you have partners in San Antonio?
Not a formal one. We are in talks with some nonprofits, but I am always happy to take more connections or ideas.
Great, great. Yeah, people want to know contact information, and our speakers have posted contact information in the chat, so please check there. What else? Open to other questions. You can unmute yourself or you can type your question in the chat.
I think I did see one. If there's an age limit for Silvernest, there is not. We have every age and both genders on our website. So just in case that slide was at all confusing with our demographics. We actually have a 102-year-old man on our platform right now, but we 20-year-olds and everything in between.
How about anyone else?
Well, I would love to make one little, I love leaving people in case we leave soon. I do want to say home share, sometimes affordable housing talks get kind of, you know, there's a lot of awful stories for a very good reason. But from my perspective, and a lot of our users that we've talked to, I would highly recommend just exploring, you know, home sharing, because it is fun. I had so much fun doing it. It's not like the last resort because I can't afford to do anything else and I don't know how I'm going to make it. I did it I thought I was helping someone. Actually, I did it from kind of like, hey, I want to help someone out who needs a room. And I thought I was being this wonderful person. It actually ended up, I think I got way more out of the deal than she probably did. So anyway, I always want to kind of leave on that high note of, open your mind a little bit, maybe open your home, open your heart, and, one room can change 2 lives.
Jennifer, I was just scrolling through the chat. There's a question there on what are the tax consequences for home sharing?
So we do not, if you consider us kind of an information platform, if you will, we don't give out any kind of financial advice, tax advice. We don't send out any type of, oh, here's the rent that was collected. We don't send any information like that to the IRS or to you. That is between you and your, financial planner or tax accountant. And, there's just no way we could keep track of all that for everybody. So that's something, but a great question. Get it a lot.
I had a question about Silvernest.
Mhm.
I just did a search in the Austin area, and I think I only found 4 homes. So how long has Silvernest been in operation?
Yeah, since 2016, and I am actively talking with folks in Austin right now, trying to get that inventory built. I mean, we're a younger company, and I wish we had an unlimited budget. We're very mission driven, and we don't have enough to advertise in every geo in the country. So we tend to really focus all of our efforts and dollars and, energy into cities where we have formalized partnerships. So Denver is where we started. We're picking up now in the DC metro area, Southern Florida, Southern California, the state of Oregon. So, but there is nothing really that I would love to do more than make Austin next. So if that's where I implore you, if you have any kind of even an idea for me, I will clearly talk to anyone. I'll talk all the time, but please let me know. I'd love to have connections and figure out how to bring this to Austin and Texas in general.
Another question is, what services do you all offer for people who rent apartments?
As long as you, that's a great question. So we say homeowner, you can sign up as a homeowner or housemate, which is actually free. It's free to sign up. We don't get paid until we do our job and find you a person and you're making money. But as long as you don't have to actually own the home, as long as it's okay. And this is where I kind of say #adulting, because you need to understand, am I able to have a roommate according to my lease, according to my HOA, according to whatever the rules are in the community home, townhome, apartment that I live in. And this is also, I'll say, very specific to home sharing. We ask a lot of questions around gender, age preferences, pets, all kinds of things to make sure we're giving you the correct match. And that's because you're going to be sharing that home. You cannot rent out, and we make sure we look at this all the time and make sure we get the word out. You cannot rent out empty space, because then that would be that's not in compliance with fair housing laws. You can't ask those kinds of questions if you're renting out empty space. This is only for shared home sharing, situations.
I have a question or two. I actually am home sharing and have been for 5 years. And it's been hit or miss. I've had 2-3 really great housemates and a slew of nightmares. So right now I'm living with 2 grown children, but I'm really thrilled to know that you're around. Because if they move on, of course, I can't expect them to live here forever. But the nightmare with having housemates is getting hooked up with the right person.
Correct.
And I thought I'd gotten really savvy with my questions and how deeply I probed, and then lo and behold, they were crazy. So
I'm so sorry. That's terrible.
So you're not in Austin now?
Well, you can get on anywhere in the country. It's just there's not a lot of inventory in Austin. There's actually a lot of probably way more people signed up as housemates looking. But you could post your home, at any point. Anywhere in the country, you can list your home.
And I really appreciate this conversation. I can't tell you how encouraged I feel. I do have a real tangential question about the folks on the east side, the older, primarily Black folks who've gotten their houses paid off But with increasing taxes,
Yep.
what's in place to protect those people from being, moved out of their homes because they can't afford to pay the taxes?
Yeah, well, this is where I hope that home sharing takes off. We see that here in DC, gentrification and displacement is a huge issue, just like it is in Austin, just like it is in Denver. I mean, so many places around the country are losing their neighborhoods and those communities that are so important and give it that flavor. So if we can, not only does this create an income opportunity, it creates an opportunity to bring people that are living and working in this community, and not knocking down the homes and, and putting in townhomes that are $1 million. And I mean, I see this happening down the road in Alexandria. So, I talk with folks in government all the time. Actually, the state of Oregon, they're pretty progressive. And we testified during some legislation, and it got passed unanimously in 2019. The state of Oregon has authorized a $300,000 property tax abatement for people who home share. So, which is significant. They said it is so important to us, and it's actually less expensive for us to offer property tax abatement for home sharing than it is, to build affordable housing.
Right.
So there's some interesting legislation, which, happy to talk offline. I don't want to take up too much time going on around the country. I testify all the time and go to hearings to get kind of laws changed, because we're a little bit disruptive, right? Just like Uber, 15 years ago, you would not have hopped in some stranger's car, right? But this is a sharing economy play, and the sharing economy is really great when you do it right. And so we're just taking the sharing economy now to your home. So if you don't want to drive around people in your car all day to earn, extra side gig money, why not take that extra bedroom? And
Sure.
one more quick story I love, because some people are like, ooh, but what about, I don't want a roommate here during Christmas. And I had a woman say that, and I said, well, write that in your profile. Say, my family comes home for Christmas. I need my extra room back. And she said, I can write that. I said, yes, you write whatever you want. You decide how you get to live. And she found a roommate, and they've been living together down in Southern Florida, because the girl was like, oh, I don't want to be at your house at Christmas. I want to go home to my family. So, it just works. Like, you get to decide how you live. That's why I always just want to make sure I'm not going to ever tell you how to live. I'm just going to help you find the right people. So like Celeste doesn't have the crazy roommate problem as much, hopefully. So that's
Really?
right. We don't want that. That's what we're trying to avoid here.
Jennifer, you didn't appreciate everything you've said, and plus I'm want to be your best friend. But Peter, can you or somebody who's here local in Austin talk about, is there anything in place to protect older people who have a fixed income and can't afford the taxes on their homes?
Letitia, you want to
Having
take that one?
Okay, well, we have education, and as I stated before, there are exemptions for age and disabilities, and we want to make sure that citizens of Austin have that information, have access to that information, and then we'll talk to them about deferring taxes and the implications of that, and also making payment arrangements. People just let the taxes get behind and never know that you could have actually picked up the phone and called to make some payment arrangements. So we educate in that area. We don't have a resource for it, but we educate.
So there's nothing in place like your taxes are capped. There's nothing like that for homeowners who make more money.
The closest product that we've had where they cap your taxes was on our community land trust homes, and we do have some of those coming down in the future. But that's for a home buyer, where you buy the property but you lease the land from the city, and there's a tax cap on that.
So yeah, there's a Homestead Act for 65 plus, but all that does is cap your the AISD taxes, the school taxes, not the property tax. I just looked at this. Anyway, I really think our legislators should do something to protect those homeowners.
It's a good point, Celeste, and so many people don't know even about the basic. They don't know about the basic, even the homesteaders. exemption. So that's what the city of Austin, through this Austin is My Home program, is trying to educate the community. And Tommi, I know you had your hand up. Did you want to wait?
Letitia touched on it. I just wanted to echo, I don't know the details of it, but I do understand that there is a program for deferral so that property taxes could be deferred until death or sale. And we actually have on our board of directors, we have an elder law attorney who would be happy to consult with somebody if you just wanted a phone call to just explore what those options are before you talk to the city about different programs. But yeah, I would wholeheartedly endorse exploring that because, you know, sometimes taxes are, even if you've got your home paid off, sometimes the taxes can be, you know, a real burden.
Intimidating.
Intimidating is a better choice. Yes.
One of the things that we on the Commission on Seniors found out is that a surprising number of seniors have not availed themselves of the opportunity to get the tax exemptions that they're entitled to under state law. It's unfortunate, but what we did at the commission level was to ask the city council to provide some more educational opportunities for people in the community so that they understand how to get those tax exemptions. Frankly, it's not an easy thing to do. The process to go through it, if you're an attorney, it might be pretty easy, but if you're not an attorney, it might seem intimidating. That's one small area that we've been working on to try to mitigate some of these tax concerns.
I would like to add one more thing to that. People appealing their tax amounts with the appraisal district is also a good thing, and that people feel intimidated by, and they get these letters in the mail and their taxes are going up and they feel like they just have to live with it. But we always tell people, appeal it. There are new properties being built in certain neighborhoods and it's going to drive your taxes up, but you have to appeal it and state your case that this is the condition that my property is in. Thank you.
It's good information, everybody. Other questions? One of the questions, and Peter, I think this is on your list too of questions, is like during the recent freeze, and now we in the older adult community are talking about emergency preparedness. So how can your solutions help in that regard with emergency preparedness, whether it's a fire or a drought or now a freeze? It seems like every season we have, you know, the risk of some kind of emergency.
Oh,
Go ahead, Tommi. You go, Tommi.
I'll just say, so ours is, you know, it was not part of the main point, you know, the idea about keeping people in their homes for as long as possible. And, you know, and again, I'll just reinforce that's so important, partly because our homes are imbued with so much more meaning than a place to live. It's, you know, I like to say that the village movement is about people, not housing units. And one of the things that happened during the winter storm is that we actually had, you know, when some of our folks lost power, as many people across the city and the region did, we actually had them established opportunities for them to shelter in place with other people in our village, in our network of seniors across town. And so we had people that, you know, if you had an extra room, you know, we would filter it either through the office or because they had these established social networks within our group, that got out pretty quickly, that so-and-so needed, their water was off or their whatever. And we had 8 or 10 different people who sheltered other folks in their homes because they had power, or they had heat, or they had water. And, you know, that went on for several days. And that would not have happened. You know, it's not the sort of thing you just post on Nextdoor or Craigslist, right? So it's because they had these connections through our organization that they knew each other, were comfortable enough with each other had established these improbable friendships where it's okay to ask for help and it's okay to offer it if you have the opportunity to help your neighbor. So those things happened sort of organically. Again, it wasn't something we planned for, but we're really glad that it was in place and definitely saw a benefit from it, along with grocery delivery of flashlights and batteries, and I mean, a number of different things that we were able to accomplish because we were already set up as a network of support.
Yeah, and I would say that was perfect for the village movement to do for kind of those shorter term stays. If there's something that's maybe a little longer term, and maybe on a scale where you have like maybe first responders coming in. I've talked with FEMA a bit after some of the folks in Florida. They deal with as many probably hurricanes as the Gulf Coast of Texas does. But as even not only for people displaced by disasters, but for people coming into assisted recovery efforts. I actually used to do disaster restoration, and my son got sent to West Virginia to help out with the floods there. And there was no place for him to live because those homes had just been wiped out. And he was on a pew in a church trying to figure out when the Red Cross was going to come bring him a sandwich and water. So, I would have loved if somebody had opened their home to him, but I kind of knew who that person was. So I think for something maybe longer term, I think this is where it's so nice to know what's out there. The village is perfect for what just happened in Texas, I think, but maybe something a little bit different, a little longer term, you turn to maybe a home sharing situation.
That whole freeze period was an eye opener for not just the senior community. It was an intergenerational problem. In my wildest imagination, I would have never thought that the weather would get so bad in Texas that the electric grid could not hold out. And without placing blame on anyone, because I think there's a lot to go around, it certainly would be an eye opener for everybody to think about what you need in your home going forward to mitigate the problems that came out of the freeze. I lost electric and water, and I was thankful that my son said, "Come on over. We don't have water, but we've got electric." So it's a challenge.
This is Letitia. I never want to make excuses for public servants, but if we're honest with ourselves, we could not have prepared for some of the things that we've had. We couldn't have prepared for the Halloween floods. We couldn't have prepared for Katrina. We could not have prepared for the Storm Uri. However, what we can be prepared for is always knowing that an emergency will occur, something unexpected will occur, and we'll have to do more of what we're already doing. The services that we offer them year-round. So for Uri, we got additional resources in order to provide the emergency services, but it's what we do. Thanks.
Yes.
I believe, I'm sorry, was there another question?
No, go ahead, Peter.
I believe we've come to the time that we need to wrap up. I'd like to personally say thank you so much to Letitia Brown Moore with the City of Austin, Jennifer Hammer with Silvernest, and Tommi Ferguson with Capital City Village for taking serious amounts of time out of your busy schedules to enlighten this great audience that we've got. Teresa, do you have anything else that you'd want to add before we close this one down?
No, thank you everyone for being here for this first session of today's forum. Stay tuned. You have just 5 minutes. Go grab a cup of coffee or a glass of water and come on back to your computers. We have a great panel ready to go. We're going to talk about ADUs and other types of living arrangements that might be suitable for older adults. So stick around. So thank you very much, panelists. It's been a pleasure to listen to you. And do check out the chat. Letitia answered a couple questions from different people, attendees in the chat box. So do check that out. You can keep it. You can save the chat to your computer If you click on the three dots at the bottom of the chat screen, it says Save Chat. You can do that. All right. Okay. Thank you very much. And for our next panel, will the speakers please turn your video on so that I can put you in the spotlight. Thanks, everybody. Carol Lilly, are you here?
Hey, Teresa, I'm looking in the participants. I don't see a Carol in the participants.
Okay, thank you.
This is Don Young, and I serve on the board with Carol. I think she'll be back. I'll call her.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
All right.
While we're waiting a few more minutes to begin our next session, in the chat, I'd love for your feedback on this question. In a few words, describe the perfect neighborhood for older adults. In your opinion, what would that be? The perfect neighborhood for older adults. On your screen is a list of our future forums. Be sure and save the date on your calendar. Always starts at 1 o'clock. Thursdays, 1 o'clock. I'm just looking at the responses here. This is wonderful. Thank you very much for your feedback. All right, so we'll get started with our second session. And to do that, I need to introduce you to someone, Cindy Cummings. Cindy is a realtor and owner of the Cummings Home Team, which specializes in senior move management. She is AustinUP's board chair, and she's a sponsor of this age-friendly Austin Forum series. She also is the founder of the Austin Senior Resource Alliance and a board member for Drive a Senior Central Texas. Cindy.
Thank you, Teresa. I'm so excited to be a part of this forum today. Of course, this is a topic that's true to my heart, and I'm always looking at new and creative ways of people getting the kind of housing that they want and they deserve. So super excited to have this panel here today. We're going to follow a very similar format to this morning. What we'll do is we'll introduce each of the speakers, and then they'll have 5 or so minutes to talk about their company. And then I'll ask some general questions that we've already pre-prepared. And then we'll also be watching the chat box and the question and answer box. So participants, if you are here, we've got a whole bunch of people here. If you've got some questions, just start putting them in the chat, and at that portion of our presentation, we'll ask those questions. So to begin with, Rebecca, would you like to take the stage and go ahead and tell us a little bit about your company?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. My name is Rebecca Powers. I'm the customer care and sales manager here at Village Farm Tiny Home Community. We are offering a alternative living arrangement reminiscent of a traditional village. We call it attainable and sustainable housing. We have a site plan approved for 170 tiny home lot locations. And, you know, a lot of our demographic are retired folks and empty nesters. And, you know, at this point, we have 70 tiny home lot locations. We're breaking ground right now on another 68 locations. We'll build a general store, a bistro, and it's going to be an opportunity for folks who live here to volunteer on the farm, to participate in beekeeping, and to really have a connection with their neighbors, and also steward the land that they live on.
Excellent. Well, Rebecca, I had a chance to go drive through your community because I was curious.
Awesome.
And yes, I got to go check it out. And the community looks great. And the tiny homes look really fabulous. And people have really made them beautiful. They have some really nice outdoor living. So when you talk about why don't you talk about your location, where you're located, and then talk about, do you own the land underneath, or do you rent that, and how that works?
Sure, yeah, I'm happy to elaborate on that. Our property is located on Decker Lane, which is just 15 minutes east of downtown Austin, Texas. Very easy access to all of the major highways. In fact, it takes me less time to get downtown living here 8 miles away than it used to when I lived 4 miles away on South Congress because the traffic is not so congested. Yeah, so location wise, it's 8207 Canoga Avenue, and folks are obviously allowed to visit for property tours and, you know, visit the farm for the farm stand. So that's a little bit about our location, and we really work diligently to ensure that the community is upkept and beautiful. And part of the benefit is while you don't own the land, you also don't have the responsibility of maintaining the land as far as the farm is commercially run. We, as in property management, do maintain the grounds, the landscaping, and, you know, ensuring that trash pickup is handled every day. So you own the tiny home and you have equity in the tiny home. It's zoned commercially as a RV resort, a campground. But you do rent the land. And so even if you owned the land, you would still have to pay property taxes and stuff. So it kind of mellows out when you factor in all of the expenses of property ownership.
Terrific. Well, that's a really great summary for us. I know we're going to have a ton more questions for you. So Rika, so glad to see you again. I'm excited for you to tell everybody about your company and what you do. And we're have a whole bunch of questions for you after your presentation.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to screen share my presentation so that everybody can see. So give me just a second. Okay, so hello, everybody. I just want to say thank you to Cindy and for AustinUP for having us, Keepers Land Planning. And a little bit about me. I'm the owner and founder and land planner of Keepers Land Planning. I've got my master's in urban and regional planning from Texas A&M, have a bachelor's as well in international missiology. Members of a few local councils, a member of ULI, Local Housing Council, also a member of NARI for Builders and CBUSA for Builders. So we're definitely connected. Excuse me. Click my next button here. Okay, so a little bit about our company and what we do. We are a land use expert and permit specialist. We have over 10 years of experience as a full service permit expediting and land planning company. We're based out of Austin, but work across Texas, have clients everywhere. We work with landowners, builders, developers, and realtors within the commercial and residential development industry. We have built a long-term relationship with Realty Austin, and we're known as their land planner, and we love that, and we love helping them. What we're known for is our flat fees and permitting, no surprises, and always helping our clients, and most importantly, honesty. Our goal is to help make dreams a reality, and if necessary, make nightmares go away. If anyone's tried to do any type of development in Austin or local jurisdictions, you may understand how intimidating you can feel or how sometimes impossible it can be. But we walk our clients through the process of development, even if it is just a granny flat or a tiny home. And we're here to ease their burden and again, walk them through that process. So permitting and design is complicated. It can feel like you're stuck sometimes, especially if you're doing it and you've never done it before. And so we always like to tell our clients, be proactive. Initially when they call us, sometimes they already feel like this lady, like they just want to pull their hair out. But we tell them, look, let's be proactive. Let's review the property first. And we do that with our consultations. So to give you an idea of that, I'll have an example coming up, but we essentially become the developer for the client with their dream and their perspective and their budget in mind. That's very important. We get their design and permitting processed and completed at minimal cost for them. Okay, so this is an example. I like examples because it's a story. But one of our clients owns 2214 Maxwell. It is a rental property. In the back of this house, there is a unit. It's a detached small shed, about 800 square feet. And he came to me and he said, hey, listen, I really want to completely redo this shed and create a tiny home so that I can rent that out. So we did a consultation for him. And when we do consultations, those are again minimal fees, but we will meet him in person and we go over several different items. And this is a copy of the report that he gets afterwards. It gives him, of course, the address, what zone he's in. It goes through impervious coverage, what his building footprint is, what he can build. Can he even build an ADU in his backyard or accessory dwelling unit? Are there any zones that would hinder him from doing so? Is it in the floodplain? Are there other things that we need to be aware of? So we know all of those the complications and zones with the city. We know the code well, so we're able to really communicate with our clients and let them know in advance. These are all the items that we look at. And then in the front page, it gives you this property summary. It tells you totaling with your existing house and an ADU, exactly square footage you can build, what are the concerns, setbacks, everything that you could possibly imagine. So to just reiterate, we go over if the property has floodplain, if it's in the Edwards Aquifer, because those are major restrictions, even if you're not in the city limits. If you've got a creek in your backyard, if it's always been there, that could determine whether or not you could build in your backyard. If you have any easements, if you're a corner lot, there's a lot of things that we look at to really determine. If you need to add additional parking for that dwelling unit or that tiny home, we go over everything with the client. and of course, what that permitting process looks like. I wanted to touch on this briefly, Cindy. I'm kind of getting ahead of you, I think. So stop me if you want me to stop, but this is an example of one of our clients. This is a tiny home that she rents out for short-term rents and makes good money on it yearly. It's another source of income for her specifically, but they range in size between 300 square feet and 1,100 square feet. And the true definition is an accessory dwelling unit or a secondary dwelling unit as opposed to your primary unit. So something in addition to that, your primary house on your property. So I can stop here, Cindy, but
Yeah,
let me know.
why don't you go ahead and then we'll bring it back in, because I think this
Okay.
is really great information.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you, Rika. So if you'll go ahead and unshare. And then, hey, Carol, we're happy to see you. So I didn't do a proper introduction. Rika is with land planner and owner, Keepers Land Planning. And then we have Rebecca, and she's the director at Village Farms. So I didn't get the names of those companies out. Sorry about that. I'm not a professional, what I want to say, not a professional at this. So Carol happens to be from Boomers Collaborative. And so we're so happy to have her here. Carol, we're just doing, each speaker's just doing a brief introduction before we get into the actual content. So if you have slides, you can share slides, or you can just tell us a little bit about your program.
Okay, hold on just a moment here and let me get situated. And my apologies for attending late. I don't know why I had it in my head that it started at 2:30, but I did. So my apologies, please.
No worries.
Okay, hold on just a second and let me get to where I need to be.
And then if you have questions, participants, if you'll just put them in the chat, we're going to ask those questions after we get through the content of our presentation.
And of course, now I started with a much longer version of this presentation here. So I've abbreviated.
Oh, good. Yeah, we just want a couple minutes really just to kind of, yeah, just give us kind of an idea of what you do.
All right, so now how do I do this in?
You just go to share screen, go down to the very bottom of your screen.
I need to be there first, and then, but to get this actual slideshow to run, okay.
What you do is you put the slideshow up in the background. First, go to your slideshow and open it.
Okay.
And then go to share screen.
The thing I wasn't able to do though was to bring Zoom back up. So that's why I was in my in the slideshow view, but I couldn't bring Zoom back up.
Well, I don't think you have to worry about it. I think you just go ahead and share, and then we'll try that. And if it doesn't work, then we'll just have you talk for a couple minutes. You could just talk through your slides, but you shouldn't have to worry about Zoom. I love this. We're all having to learn new technology. It's making our, we're making the brain cells connect. So we're less likely to get dementia.
I know.
Because it's been a year, let me tell you.
I keep telling all my vintage friends, that's what we need to do. So.
Oh, I love that term, vintage friends. That might be the new word, because no one wants to be called senior. We certainly know that.
Okay, well, we're sharing now the slide with the
I
notes. So let's get the show going. Let's see.
Okay,
if we can
terrific.
Here. Okay, now you're on top. I can see everybody.
Okay, excellent. You've just got just a couple minutes, Carol.
Okay, a couple of minutes. All right,
Yes,
so here we are, Boomers Collaborative. Many baby boomers want and need a new model for retirement. And so Boomers Collaborative exists to respond. And we're trying to develop a mixed use, limited equity, 55 and older housing cooperative with makerspace and other amenities. Okay, so advance. How do we currently, oops, that doesn't work.
It did work. When you
look at,
there you go.
How do we currently deal with senior problems? We do so in silos. We have housing programs, and we have programs to help people that are launching new businesses. And then we have other social networking and rides. We offer rides, food, that sort of thing. But what if, advance, what if we decided to do this holistically? And here locally, we already have a couple of examples of organizations that have taken the systems approach to solving problems. And that would be Community First Village. They do that with the homeless and the disabled. And then Foundation Communities does this for families with children, school-age children especially. But anyway, so we're thinking about that in terms of serving our seniors. So we're going to do that through a housing co-op and a makerspace, this mixed use development. So what is cooperative housing and how is it different from co-housing? Co-housing is an intentional community planned, owned, and managed by its residents. The typical structure is typically an HOA, condo association, or housing cooperative. So a housing cooperative is the same. It's an intentional community, but in this case, the residents jointly own or lease their building under a single instrument. Individuals or families then purchase shares in the cooperative, which entitles them to a lease. In Austin, there are really essentially only two kinds of housing co-ops: the zero equity, which we are familiar with here in Austin. We see that in our student housing co-ops, where the students do not have an equity interest in their units. And then we have the limited equity, and we think that this is ideal for seniors. Members purchase a cooperative share, entitling them to tenancy in one of the co-op's units, and they get the best of home ownership because of this equity position, and the best of a rental property because when something goes wrong, they just call the office and say, I have a problem, and the co-op takes care of the repair. Okay, then why a housing co-op and not a condo? And at one time, when I first did the concept paper on this, I said co-op or condo. I wasn't sure what would be better. As it turned out, the co-op community embraced the idea. And it's just, as you start to think about all the advantages, the nature of joint ownership means that a co-op is better at building community, which seniors need. And co-ops are really more affordable. You only have one closing and you get to share expenses on so many things. All right, here's our architect's concept of what we might look like. You can, I'm not going to go through what the floors are supposed to be in this rendering, but it's available on our slide. And we think we're perfect at addressing affordability. In most cases, we'll be offering 1-1 or 2-2 units to those earning between 50 and 80% of MFI, and that would be seniors 55 and older. In some cases, because of particular site differences, we might be offering 1-1 and 2-2 units to anyone of any age at the same levels, 50 to 80% of MFI. And then where member beneficiaries are willing to share tenancy, we hope that we can go and help those earning even less. So
Terrific.
Especially since the MFI has gone up so much lately. Okay, milestones for us. As you can see, the concept paper, I wrote that in 2013. We incorporated as a nonprofit in 2016. So we've been around, we've been trying to do this for a long time. We can answer an awful lot of questions when it comes to what goes on. We've been negotiating with a developer, our developer of choice, since I actually think we probably started in 2019. 2018, we were probably introduced to him, but got more serious in 2019. And as you can see the red arrow, that's where we are now. We hope to be more firmly in the camp by summertime, and then provided that all goes well, grand opening in early 2023. I could stop there. This is our current board of directors. We have vacancies. I was going to push for anybody that wants to. If they're interested, we have 2 vacancies. and any Q&A time. So, and then I do have some addenda to this that people can review on their own time when we share the deck.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Carol. I think that gives us a good overview of what you're trying to accomplish. So what we're trying to do here is to offer alternative ways of living so that people can continue to live in the manner and the way that they wish to live. So we're going to be talking about accessory unit dwellings or granny flats. We're also going to be talking about the rules and tiny homes, housing cooperatives, just everything like that. So just really anything outside of a typical home that people now live in. So our first question, and what we'll do is I'll ask the question, then we'll just go round robin. So on my screen, it'll go Rika, then Rebecca, and then Carol. So the first question is, describe your ideal client or resident, qualities that might ensure long-term residence. So Rika, that may not make sense to you because you really don't have residents. So, and that's okay, we're gonna pass. So Rebecca, if you'll take that. Who's a great person for you to come and live in your community?
Well, because our community is surrounding a certified organic farm as the main amenity, rather than like say a golf course or what you would find in a typical neighborhood, we're definitely seeking a demographic committed to having a lower carbon footprint, subscribing to the philosophy of minimalism and doing more with less. And more specifically, really people who are interested in getting their hands dirty and volunteering on the farm and having that connection with the food that they eat while simultaneously making really deep relationships and friendships with neighbors. And because that's what we're attracting here like a magnet, it truly has brought in a lot of people who are maybe widowed, or they went through a divorce, or they're now retiring and they're seeking to have fulfillment and connection with their community at a very deep, intimate level.
Tell us about the farm. So the farm is a commercial farm, and do you get the produce off of it, or how does that work?
Yes, so this is the website. Did that pop up for Greengate Farms?
It is. Mm-hmm.
They have been in business since 2006. This is the family that saved this farm. When our company, Roberts Communities, acquired the property in 2015, there was the manufactured housing community on one side, the Oak Forest RV Resort on one side, and smack dab in the middle was Greengate Farms. Well, Roberts Communities, our company, has never built a community around a farm before. So it was really Aaron and Skip's idea to create this unique community. And they are marketing it, the vision was to be an agrihood, a neighborhood around agriculture. So the owner of our company worked with them. We worked with the sustainability department of Austin, Texas. And really the farm is the heart of our property. So this farm has been here since 1902. In fact, the Bergstrom family, it was, initially a Swedish farm with a Swedish mule barn. That's, the red barns up here. We've completely redone everything, renovated the farmhouse, and now we utilize the space for volunteer events, culinary, maybe celebrity chef demonstrations or culinary workshops. But really the farm is commercially run. So as a resident, you don't have to volunteer. You could simply show up on Saturday and pick up your produce from the farm stand. And down the road, when more people live here, we're actually going to build a general store and a bistro, which will source the produce directly from our certified organic farm.
That's super cool. Thanks for sharing about the farm. I didn't understand that piece of it. Carol, who would be the perfect resident for you to help you build this new co-op community and live in that kind of environment?
Well, we're saying anyone 55 and older with a substantial equity in their current home and interested in downsizing, or somebody who falls within 50 to 80% of the area's median family income. Elder orphans, those with no supportive family to count on, any senior or senior couple wanting to live in a supportive, vital community, open to neighborhood interaction, And then seniors who are either launching small businesses because they create things or provide services, or those that still need employment. Seniors, by and large, we mostly want to work part-time or job share, and those just aren't available. But we feel like in a mixed use setting, that is something we can provide people. So that's what we're trying to accommodate, senior needs.
Perfect. Well, thank you. Hey, Rika, I kind of poo-pooed you, but you might want to tell us who your typical client is. It doesn't necessarily have to be the person who, is going to be living in the home. So tell us a little bit about that if you've prepared for that question.
Yes, no, I'd love to. And it's similar to Carol, like we work with a lot of folks that we do consultations with, and their property is in Austin or wherever, and they know that they can do an ADU or a tiny home in their backyard, and they may be 55 and older. They may have parents that they're building for. We have several, one off of Pascal Drive right now that is going through permitting and is about to start construction in the summertime, where they're building that for their parents, whether it's to live permanently or just to come visit. But 55 and older, people that want to stay in place, they want to live, they want to age in place, but they want extra income, and they want to work with people in a professional team where there's fixed rates at everything, there's no surprises, and they need a builder that can provide a good square foot build rate of like at least 185 a square foot. So they're, they have extra income now. Maybe they're looking to retire at a certain age, but they're ready and they're thinking, you know what, I'd like to downsize one day. I'd like to be in a smaller home one day and maybe have extra income and rent out my main house for, $2,500 a month. That added income would be amazing. How would I even go about doing that? Well, that's where we come in and we help you figure that out. That would be an ideal client, really, is just how are you looking to stay in place near your HEB, near your church, near your neighbors? We help them. So
excellent. Well, I know each of you would be talking about this next topic from your own specific experiences, so that will be great. The question is, are city codes and regulations evolving to make it easier to build these types of developments? And if not, what does it take? What kind of change do we need to make this easier for these kinds of projects? So Rika, we'll start with you and just go from your background of the ADUs and the, inside the city of Austin, how that's going.
Yes. So I'm a code expert and the code whisperer, some people like to say, but I can pretty much figure out a way to get an ADU on any type of zone. The most common is single family 2, single family 3. It just depends on how size your lot is, but basically with the new land development code that is getting adopted, it's not quite there yet, but you'll be able to build pretty much an ADU on any residential lot. So that's good news. And HOAs, of course, have a lot to say. So it really also depends on what the HOA is also saying, but we work with them as well if need be. But yeah, it's easy nowadays to build in your backyard. So.
Wow, I'm shocked to hear that, because all I hear about all the problems that people have had. So I'm looking forward to those changes that are coming down the pipe. Rebecca, are you guys thinking about expanding someplace else? How was it doing the project there? Do you want to do it someplace else? Or you're like, heck no, this was so hard, this is it?
It's definitely been a challenge. The zoning, it's a commercial property, so we were zoned as a campground. And coincidentally, the city limit is just, less than a half a mile away from our property. So we're actually in the county, which is a little bit friendlier thing. But our company actually is acquiring additional properties that are doing these park models, but with a slightly different model, where it's more of a rental kind of arrangement. We just acquired a property in Houston. We're working on one in Fredericksburg. But in regard to Austin, this is, I think, our one and only, very special agrihood to the historic farm. And it's definitely a labor of love. From a business model perspective, a lot of money has been invested to bring this to life. Part of that's like getting a historic marker with the city of Austin. And it's just a really unique parcel. And so, yeah, I can't really see us doing too much more with the farming aspect. We're not farmers, of course. Greengate Farms is very special in that way, but we created a new brand called Village Camp, and it is geared toward park model RVs, which are AKA tiny homes. And that, we are expanding across the country. But for Austin, Texas, I mean, this is just the perfect neighborhood. Talking about gentrification and such, like the folks who have been attracted to our community are just so widespread. It's not just retired folks. We have millennials, first-time home buyers. Like, it's very charming, a very unique mix and blended community, really. But yeah, this is, I think, our one and only unique agri-hood now. It's pretty experimental. We're really pioneering this. So yeah, as far as zoning goes, I mean, even the builders say these are not meant for year-round living because they are built on a steel frame with tires. We put them on cinder blocks and strap them to the ground, and they're sitting on road base. So it's safer, they're hurricane strapped at least, kind of like what you would see in a manufactured home community. But yeah, I mean, there have been some challenges, like even the DMV has given us a hard time and tried to include the patio outdoor living space as part of the square footage and was refusing and rejecting some of the applications and said it had to go to the Department of Housing. It's been a bumpy ride.
But you're learning so much every day. You could write a book,
Oh yeah, we certainly could. And it's, I think, in the long run, so that more communities like this can come about.
Mm-hmm. Well, Carol, you've been at this for a couple years, so you might have something to say about all this. Is the city codes and regulations one of the reasons why it's been hard for you to get a co-op going, or what's your feeling on that?
Well, I'm going to speak to that. Actually, I mean, I do have a background in residential design and home building, but and then also city planning. I worked as a planner for a couple of years, but it was in single family detached housing. So I don't have that much experience with, multifamily. But I understand and understood what was what we were going to be facing. However, well, let me just go ahead and tell you, I have it framed up here. There were several impediments when we first started out. We found that local bankers were unwilling to offer share loans, and there were also no rules for participating in the city's down payment assistance program, even though federal regs state that share loans are eligible. Fortunately, we were successful in getting the city to write rules for down payment assistance, and but we had no success getting convincing local bankers to do share loans. However, while we were working locally on these issues, we learned there was a national push by one of our mentors to get rules written so that the National Cooperative Bank could extend share loans in several states, including Texas. So we eventually found a local community development finance institution for a portion of our interim construction monies, and we identified the National Co-op Bank for our members who would need share loans. And then we would have the city to help those that might want down payment assistance. I guess I could add here that one of the things I understood was that I purposely went to neighborhood districts instead of, working on zoning. I mean, go where it's easy to do what you want to do, where, the field is open for mixed use development. So I purposely set out, putting that as down as one of the first things we needed was to look for, some place that would allow the mixed use development. So we wouldn't have as much to contend with that way. But recently we have begun to encounter some more headwinds because of our need to partner with a developer. That was another thing I, intuitively understood. We needed to partner with a developer so that, we could get the financing and everything arranged. But what's happening to us now, we managed to put together our own competent team and a design build team. So, and they're all highly respected here in the community. And now what's happening to us is we're kind of being sidelined in all as the negotiations are going forward, and as things keep skyrocketing here in Austin, that the investors are starting apparently to get antsy. Anyway, if we could develop on our own with our competent team, we would be faring much better. We would fare much better anyway, because with the developer and investors involved, you've got that many more people to share, money with. And if we can do it on our own, then we don't have that, it's our people that are making the investment. And so it's better for us all the way around. Anyway, we think that's something that, and I have it addressed in another area here too, a little bit more about that. But, it's in the news lately that this is now something that everybody is, starting to understand. And we're getting a lot of pushback around the world to let go of policies that continue to prop up the rich and leave those of us less fortunate behind. And so I'm beginning to think that it's a change in municipal policy, and especially after I've learned about what some mixed use co-ops are doing in Switzerland. The cities there have different kinds of policies, and I'll talk about those later.
Well, actually, that's a great segue. My next question is going to be, are some cities more open to these types of developments, and which cities serve as a good example for Austin? So Carol, if you just take a minute and just talk about, are there some other cities that do a little bit better with these types of developments, and what cities those would be?
Okay. Although we have, housing cooperatives in the United States, both zero and limited equity, they just aren't as prevalent as they are elsewhere in the world. And our model is still very new in the States. I'm not going to say, when I first started looking, I couldn't find anyone that was doing it, but I'm not going to say that anymore. I'm assuming there are other people out there trying to do this. Minneapolis is friendly to cooperatives, and they are more common on both the East and West Coast. But the best examples in municipal policy we've found for mixed-use housing cooperatives seem to be in Switzerland, where in Zurich, approximately 26% of all housing is cooperatively owned, which is an amazing figure if you think about it. Jessica Bridger of Metropolis Magazine writes in November of 2016, co-ops and their residents in Zurich have enjoyed protection from the market for a century. Land is leased by the city under favorable conditions, enabling co-ops to build and operate affordable housing. The city of Zurich, that was a quote. The city of Zurich requires architectural competitions for each co-op development, ensuring innovation and quality design and affordable housing, as well as generating interest to help assure their success. So if we are really to address affordability, we believe US cities need to do as Zurich has done and begin partnering with intentional communities or offering incentives for developers to partner with us to tip the balance and make cooperative development more mainstream.
Wow, well, that's excellent information. And I know that you've done so much research and spent so much time doing that, and we are getting the advantage of you just telling us what you found out. So we appreciate that, and we'll keep that in mind as people talk about different kinds of housing and ways to get it done. Rebecca, how about you? Are there some cities more open to your kinds of developments, and if so, which cities?
Well, for tiny homes, so for instance, the park model RVs, they are on a steel frame with tires. And so inside of the city limits, it makes it kind of challenging if you want to do this like at your house and in your backyard. They want it to be on like a permanent sort of foundation. So, I mean, so for us, like for instance, California has also a housing crisis. So like in 2016, Fresno had changed their policies to allow it, even if it's on a steel frame with tires. It doesn't have to be the ADU on the permanent foundation. Los Angeles just changed their policy recently as well. Other locations like Florida, there's a lot of snowbirds and retired folks there. So that's been pretty friendly. A lot of cities there for the tiny homes. Washington and Oregon have both, and that's really where the tiny home movement started, was in Northern California and that whole side. So yeah, those are some places that come to mind. But you know, there's a difference between the friendliness of doing this just one tiny home in someone's backyard versus an entire community. Now you have to pay a commercial site plan, you know, that's like over $30,000. I mean, not everyone can, if you want to do this with some of your friends, that it really starts to add up. So it makes it kind of illegal and challenging to even build community like this. Unfortunately, really, you know, it should be incentivized. And I think some cities are starting to catch on, but yeah, we have a lot of work to do.
Thank you. Rika, what are you going to tell us?
Well, I mean, I think that Austin's come a long way. I mean, we work in Austin quite regularly. There's the new code definitely lends us to this tiny home more so than it used to, for sure. Leander, Hutto, Cedar Park, they all allow tiny homes in their backyard. I'm trying to go through. Round Rock does as well. Jonestown, I mean, I could list, I mean, there's very few places that you cannot build a tiny home in your backyard. But it's true. I mean, Rebecca's right. There's a lot of policy that needs to move forward before you can really do this on a grand scale, because I love the tiny home communities. I think they're amazing. I'd love to do that one day. But if you do it the right way, where, you know, you're leasing and you own your actual building, or you're leasing the actual tiny home, and it's almost set up as a condo regime, where the owner possibly really kind of owns the land, or there's community spaces involved, and there's different ways of doing it. If you're wanting to do a small neighborhood, it really is case by case basis.
When you talk about a tiny home in the backyard, Rika, are you saying that you can have wheels, or do you have to take the wheels off and have it on some kind of slab?
So that's a good point, because that's a gray area in the code. In Austin, it really depends on what type. If it's a wood framed home, if that's how you're building the home and it's not a shipping container, then yes, it needs to be on piers or concrete. If it's a shipping container, which we have several builders that they just build out of shipping containers, you know, those are more portable, but it can't be on wheels in Austin. Like, that's a very specific code for them.
You're not getting around that, huh?
No.
Okay. Well, that is there, and you work across the city. It really sounds like it's doable, but you just need the help to make sure that you're doing it right,
yes.
so that you won't get in trouble.
Yes.
Okay. Rika, we'll start with you. How can we make these housing options more inclusive and accessible to people of diverse backgrounds?
I think it really depends on the cost of how you're building, right? Because if you're, and it also depends on what your end goal is. So if you own a property in Austin and you're thinking, you know what, I would like to have a tiny home, and then so that I could really help with the affordable housing crisis, or just help with the housing crisis. And maybe one day I'll go and I'll move into that small home so that I have less upkeep and I can rent out my main house. You know, that it really helps with the economy. It helps with density. It helps with really providing that additional house. But it really depends on, you know, who you're working with, and are you trying to do it on your own? Do you have a good builder? What are they charging you to build? What's your capacity of your utilities? Are you a corner lot? Do you have heritage trees in the way? There's a lot of things that we look at specifically to pinpoint those and help you understand as a client of ours, yes, you can actually do that work, or no, you absolutely cannot. You're in the middle of Barton Springs erosion hazard zone, and you've got, you know, Edwards Aquifer, so you can only have like 15% impervious coverage, and you're over that. So we really, I would say really, it just depends on who you're working with, and just, I recommend really reaching out to the right people that have those good, honest reputation, so that they can give you that direction. Because there are programs also, I know Letitia was referring to them earlier in the previous panel, but she referenced several things. I think I'm going to have to reach out to her, because there are programs out there where people can get assistance on building these. So I think that's hugely helpful.
Thanks for that. Rebecca, do you have any feedback to say how can we make these housing options more inclusive and accessible to people of diverse backgrounds?
Yes, we have challenges with financing. I mean, unless you're buying this cash, the opportunity to seek financing from a traditional lender is very limited. In addition to that, there are also costs for utilities and getting your internet set up. And this is typically an upfront cost that can be quite egregious. So to have the modern day conveniences that many of us are used to at an apartment or a traditional site-built home, it can be quite challenging to get that infrastructure set up. And then on top of that, you know, instead of spending $10,000 or more on a septic tank to get it set up legit, you are forbidden from having a compost toilet, which is arguably even better for the environment. And, you know, there's all these subsidies and such for solar panels on housing, but you can't get that in an RV, a tiny home, a park model recreational vehicle. There's no kickbacks or incentives for being off the grid and having those net zero capabilities. So it becomes quite expensive to do something that's better for the environment and having a lower carbon footprint, despite the fact that it should be incentivized. It's actually, in a sense, condemned.
Mm-hmm.
The way it's set up right now.
Yeah, that's great information. Carol, you want to take a minute and talk about that too, how you're trying to make the housing options more inclusive and accessible to people of diverse backgrounds?
Sure. As far as income levels, because we think, you know, we're going to offer these to individuals or to couples, and then allow for joint tenancy, where you can actually, you know, share the kitchen and anyway, all this sharing, that's going to take care of, you know, grabbing people from a variety of different income levels. As far as being inclusive and reaching out to diverse people, we must abide by the Federal Fair Housing Act. So we are outlining specific measures to engage people of color and the LGBTQ community in our marketing plan. And then everything will be universal design, so we can accommodate wheelchair-bound residents and others with physical challenges. We've already enticed several Hispanic members, and by their very nature, co-ops are democratically run. So it's, you know, generally it's one person, one vote. So everyone will have a seat at the table and no one will be left behind.
I love it. It's awesome. Well, we are getting close to the question answer period, and we'll go ahead and answer some of those questions that we might have in there. While I'm going to ask some of those questions, just Carol, real quick, what are the ballpark costs and timelines associated with your housing option? And then we'll ask Rebecca the same question. Of course, for Rika, again, we'll ask you about your services and what those costs would be. Carol, so what's the cost for your housing?
Okay, in our original plan with our design build team, our limited equity units were to have been available for between $100,000 and $200,000. And we came up with those numbers because that's what people kept coming to me with. I have this much money. I have only this much money, and I need to, you know, convert it back into housing. However, in today's market, harkening back to what is needed in the way of municipal policy changes, we can only achieve these prices if the city allows us to develop on our own with our experienced development team, or if the city chooses to partner with us instead of having us partner with some other developer with investor backers. Regardless, we are currently under a verbal agreement to participate on a small scale with just such a developer, whereby our co-op will lease affordable units from the developer and make them available to our beneficiaries. We expect to have news about our participation sometime this summer.
Excellent. Okay. Rebecca, how much are your units?
Well, as we all know, within the last 12 months, we've been hit with incredibly high price increases on lumber. So when I first started working on this project, we were selling tiny homes in the low 80,000s. And that's like all in, all the appliances, totally turnkey, ready to move into, hooked up to utilities, stairs, a driveway, landscaping, the whole shebang. Well, now on our newer phases, we're getting quoted from the builder and they're charging us like $100,000. And that's not even including transportation and getting it set up with the sidewalks and the stairs and, everything so that it's turnkey ready to move into. So our new cost that we're projecting on phase 2 and phase 3 tiny homes is going to be around $130,000. That's a 30% increase in most circumstances for us due to the rising cost of lumber. But we do still have a few tiny homes available that used to be model homes that we're selling right now that are listed more around 105.5. So that's back in the day. Cost, so to get your foot in the door with a 10% down payment, it was like $10,000 in. You finance the rest at a 15-year term. Plus you have your community fee. Most people were living here if they were financing, even then, for under $1,500 a month, which is really good for Austin, Texas. Now that our property taxes went up recently and the community fee went up to $700 a month instead of $625, it's kind of, and now that the costs of the homes have gone up, now your loans are more like $1,000 a month instead of $800, and your community fee's gone up about $100. So we're lucky if we can get people in with a 10% down payment, full in monthly expenses at $1,700 a month. That's the goal, and always to keep it under $2,000. We have people who visit us who are spending $2,500 a month to live in a 2-bedroom apartment at the Domain. So to them, to own their tiny home, this is really good price point, but we're really battling a lot of price hikes. Gas has gone up, so transportation from the factory has increased. So ballpark figure, always under $2,000. But if you're just, if you're buying it cash and you're just living here month to month, the community fee ranges from $625 a month to $700 a month.
Great, good information. Rika, what do you want to share?
So this is a really good point, because I know lumber's higher and all of that. There's definitely a lot of challenges for builders, but for the design and permitting side, we pretty much are right at 7,000 or under, and that is everything you need for a builder. That's their permit set. It's everything that we need from the city of Austin. And then we've got a builder that we work with closely who has capped his building cost at $185 a square foot, which basically, if you're building a 500 square foot tiny home, that equates to $92,500. So it tells you very affordable. If you're planning ahead and you're planning 5 to 10 years out, you're definitely able to, you're starting cash flow immediately once you've got that certificate of occupancy and you're through inspections. You start renting that thing out and you start paying it off immediately. And then when you're ready to move into that tiny home and you're living in your and you've got someone renting your primary residence, that you're cash flowing even more at that point. So it pays itself off, and then you've got that extra passive income you can live off of or add to what you're living off of in retirement. So
excellent. I'm just looking through our questions. Thanks for that feedback.
Cindy, there were a couple questions about safety, probably.
Yeah, it says how safe are the homes in this area of possible severe weather? That's a great question. Rebecca, do you want to take that one?
Yes, absolutely. So the reason we don't keep it on the steel frame and tires is because the winds and the speeds, like for instance, if there's a hurricane, we still get hit with those winds. So we do hurricane, anchor them to the ground. They're strapped to the ground in at least 6 different areas, leveled on cinder blocks on road base, which is essentially as hard as concrete, and skirted to cover everything and to protect the infrastructure. When we had the winter storm, our property kept our electricity and our water. And because the insulation is so good, a lot of us didn't even have our pipes freeze. But hey, if there's a tornado, doesn't matter if it's a site-built home or whatever the structure is, you're going to want to find a shelter with no windows.
Right,
so yeah, they're really safe. I mean, I've lived in my tiny home here for almost 2 years. And, you know, it's, in my opinion, just pretty much the exact same thing as a site-built home. The same thing with the insulation and the, you know, the roof, the galvanized metal roof. I mean, really, really strong building material that's used. So I've never had any issues personally. Nobody who has lived here has ever had any safety hazards. But if there's a tornado, we have a storm shelter on site. There's little washer dryer facilities nearby. There's a cob structure on the farm. So yeah.
You know where to go.
Not much you can do about a tornado. But thankfully in Central Texas, at least, we don't really have that, you know, too often.
Rebecca, I'm going to ask this question to you. Are there any discounts for income limitations? So do you have a discount for people based on their income, or is it just a flat?
Yeah, it's pretty much a flat, you know, fee across the board. A lot of our retired folks have gravitated toward the lot locations that are less monthly, the $625 a month. That also includes internet and cable. Whereas the other side, which is closer to the farm, is $700 a month, plus you have your internet bill. So that's pretty much the only price breakdown or price break. We always have requests for like veterans who want to have, you know, the benefits, and right now there's no program that we've set up for that. But also, we focus on affordable housing. So that's, you know, our mission as a company is to offer attainable housing.
And I don't think that you have any services on site for in-home care, like home care, transitional services, you know, care in the home.
Yeah, at this time we do not, but I will say it's truly a village. Like, we look out for our neighbors. So if someone, like when that storm happened, when one of our neighbors didn't have clean water to drink or food to eat, you know, we were on our Facebook group page, like, what do you need? What do you need? Delivering soup to each other and shoveling each other's driveways. When I go out of town, I have my neighbor watch my dog. I mean, it's a really tight-knit community, but certainly we're open to, you know, exploring how we could collaborate and co-create programs like that, or maybe a homeschool pod, and, you know, ideas that would offer those services here in the village. And I believe as more people move in, we'll be able to establish more legitimate cooperative sort of structures like this.
Great. Carol, will you have services available for seniors on site, companion care, health care,
Yes.
hospice?
Oops, yeah, I'm on. Yes, we will. We're not, maybe not as we launch, we will do that as we need, but that's going to be one of the other advantages. We already know of a co-op caregiving group and, you know, co-ops are supposed to engage other co-ops as often as possible. So that's something we've already thought about. Yes.
Excellent. Let's see. Let me see if I can see. I know there's more questions. Just let me go through here. What are the titles of the vacancies? Joanna, I don't understand your question. If you want to go ahead and unmute and maybe restate that question. What you're saying here are, what are the titles of the vacancies? And I don't quite understand that. So pop in and ask. Let's see. Tommy asked Rebecca, do you have, or did you explore placing an agricultural I can't even say it, easement via a land trust? Did you consider that?
I'm aware of, although that would be really interesting to explore. I know that at one point the farmers had suggested getting an agricultural exemption, but that can be challenging if it's less than 10 acres. We actually eventually will have the 4 acres for the farm, and I think the minimum's 5. But yeah, that could be really cool, you know, a land trust. Obviously, our intention is to steward the land and bring more value to the land. The land is the first partner, and it's really the heart of our, at least the farm is really the heart of our community. But if you have ideas on how we could do that, I'm all ears.
Yep. So Rika, walk through the impact on property taxes when you locate an ADU on your property.
Yeah, so, you know, it will increase some, but what we normally do is on the actual application itself in the city of Austin, we can label there what the cost for construction is. And that's what the appraisal district usually uses, although it's a lot less than than what your passive income could actually end up being. So it outweighs itself, I think. Although, of course, property taxes are a bear to deal with, but the income that you'd be making because of the unit outweighs the difference that you'd be paying. So
that totally makes sense. I know right now the VRBOs are going crazy and
yes.
people love to come to Austin. So,
oh yes.
Okay, I'm just looking through. Oh, I love this question because I think I know the answer. Is it possible to not use lumber for construction, and would that reduce costs? So Rebecca, go for it.
So we do have 2 tiny homes, park rental RVs on site that were built with a steel frame, but
Okay.
they were actually so heavy to transport here that it made the cost higher. I'll say community first, and I was honored to interview the CEO of this company. They're called Icon 3D. Jason, they're actually based in Austin. They are building 3D printed homes with concrete, and they figured out how to build these with hempcrete as well. Like, if that could just get approved in Austin, our housing crisis would get resolved overnight. Like, they're $10,000 to construct. I mean, it's astonishing. That's not including the appliances and everything, but here we're zoned as the RV resort. So we do, have to have that campground. There's stipulations for the building code, RVIA, we have to meet the threshold for being on the steel frame with tires and all of this. But for other future communities, you could just buy one of those 3D printers and then, print it with that. It would pay for itself very quickly. So yeah.
And the benefit of that, there's not any shipping costs because you bring those printers, if you bring a printer on site, and that's what I was going to talk about too, is like Minka. Minka is a company that competes with the other company that you're talking about. And basically it just prints out the pieces and then you assemble it. You have people come assemble it and you can assemble it in a couple of days. It's crazy. Rika, would those get passed, do you think? Would those be considered an ADU or?
There's different types of materials out there that people can use. And as long as you can get a structural engineer to sign off on the integrity of the building and the framing and the wind bracing and how that's going to hold up within the elements, then yes, it would get passed. I mean, we've got one ADU builder that uses SIPs, which is a concrete type paneling that basically there's panels that lock into place and it reinforces and it structurally. And that's becoming very popular. And I know Rebecca shook her head yes, and she's probably heard of that before, but they're less expensive, but they're also made out of concrete. So you've got it's like living in an ice box almost. You've got so much insulation and so much reinforcement that it's a lot of tiny home builders use it, and a lot of builders that use shipping containers also use that a lot. So.
Shipping containers are super popular, aren't they?
Yes.
Well, they look so Austin. I mean, they just, what they're doing in the design of them are so cool. Well, we are getting to the very end of our conversation. Teresa, do you want, we have a little bit more time. Never mind. I thought we ended at 3:15. We've got a couple more minutes. Looking through here, Tommi actually posted something, Rebecca, if you want to read more about what she put. Somebody's saying concrete's better than steel because fire burns hotter and faster in steel and homes become incredibly hot. I never thought about that. Well, we do have some more time. Rika, do you want to pull up those other slides that you were going to go through, and we could look at those real quick? And I think it will potentially add some additional information, and we might see some people who have some additional questions.
Sure.
I think you were going to talk specifically about the ADUs a little bit more.
Yes, so let me pull this up. I want to give everyone this code for whomever is interested to do a consultation with us. There is this code, Seniors Rock. You can go onto our website, keeperslandplanning.com, and schedule a consultation with me, and that'll give you $50 off if you're curious or if you've even thought about it. And also give me a call. My phone number and email address is there, and it allows you to just ask me questions and find out, if I should even spend the money on doing a consultation. We're happy to just answer your questions. So this I alluded to this several times, but thought it would be good to talk about, but why even build an ADU? Well, you're increasing you can stay in your community. You can stay, you're familiar with everything already there. Your family's used to coming to see you there. You're able to increase your quality of life, because a lot of, and I can't even imagine having this thought or having to make this decision. You know, I want to be able to live in my house. I want to be able to live exactly where I am, but you know, I can't maintain the property like I used to. I can't mow the lawn. I can't do all these things. So being able to have a different alternative, like a small home that is less upkeep, but then you can rent out another property, another house on your property, and create more income. That could be upwards from $30,000 all the way up to $75,000 a year. And I say that because one of our clients whom we built this, and I'll just go back a couple slides, or one slide, this shipping container tiny home, she really does make $70,000 a year short-term renting this out. Now that's short-term renting, not long-term, of course, but it's a tool. You know, it's a way that if you're trying to create more income for yourself, you can do that pretty easily. So let me skip over this and go to the next slide. I really went over this already. Where can you build a tiny home? Depending on your lot size will really depend on how large your tiny home can be. And things to really look out for are the size of your primary house, of course. Do you have a large water line and wastewater line that you could just tack on to your primary residence, primary house? Are you near a creek? Is there floodplain on your property? Things like that we really look out for our clients. If you're on a corner lot, you've got additional setbacks that you need to be aware of. And those large heritage trees, Austin loves their trees. I love trees as well. They're pretty particular about, you know, where you can build outside of that root zone for that specific tree. And lastly, are ADUs affordable? And again, you know, if you are younger and you still think, you know, I can short-term rent, you know, my small unit out for a while, and that will create some income for you even sooner than later, or long-term rent it out, because then you have the control of who's renting, how they're renting, and, you know, you've got a contract set up with them and everything like that. And it is affordable if you've got the right people, if they're dependable, if they have that good quality reputation, like we were talking about earlier. But yeah, I'll stop there because I could go on and talk and for a very long time. But if people have questions, are welcome to email me or call me, and I'm happy to help.
So Rika, I have a question for you about long-term rental and short-term rental, because in the city of Austin, there's definitely rules if you're doing short-term rental. You don't want people to get disappointed thinking that they can do that. Could you talk a little bit about what those rules are and why people might want to consider long-term rental, or might have to consider doing long-term rental?
Yes, so there are different types of licenses you need, and the one for short-term renting is called a type 1 license. And the main rule for that is if you live on the property, even if it's in the tiny home or the primary residence, as long as you're on the property and you live there primarily, over 50% of the time is the actual rule, then you can short-term rent out one of those units. And most people can get that license. It's when you get into multiple units and that you're short-term renting that it's harder to get. But I mean, a lot of people probably would prefer the long-term renting, just because they're dealing with one person over 6 months to a year versus, you know, short-term renting. And although of course you're doubling your income if you short-term rent versus long-term rent. But
when you talk about long-term rent, are you talking about 30 days or how many days is considered
Yes.
long-term in the city?
Thank
Okay,
you.
so anything over, you need to have a lease for more than 30 days.
Yes, anything over 30 days is considered long-term rent, and you don't need a license for that. Yeah.
Rebecca, can people do short-term rental of your units at your on your farm?
So on the side of the property that we have labeled the Founders Club side, which is where the community fee is a little bit less expensive, we share space with the Oak Forest RV Resort, and there's a little bit more of the, you know, in and out kind of short-term visitors. So we have allowed in the community guidelines for the short-term or long-term rentals on that side. So there's 48 lots that are eligible for this. So for instance, we have a neighbor who lives part of the year in Wisconsin, then she winters down here in Texas. So when she's not here, she's making really good money on Airbnb. And it's really cool because a lot of people want to experience the agrihood and the tiny home lifestyle. So while most of the folks who live here are actually, using this as their primary residence, there are also a few neighbors who have put their tiny homes up on Airbnb and are doing quite well. And then there's also 2 neighbors who are doing long-term rentals, like where it's a year or longer. For instance, when COVID happened, some folks had to move back in with family and this sort of thing. But for those circumstances, that's when we do the background check. So property management would do a background check. But on Airbnb, it kind of allows you to read their reviews, and it's in your best interest to make sure whoever's staying there is, not a total creep or whatever. So balance is there. But yes, it is allowed on that side of the property. On the pocket neighborhood side, where we have the houses are a little bit closer together, you don't have your own private driveway, we felt that it would take away from the charm of the community to have the in and out. So on that side, it's more of a, it's not really permitted, and it's more of a neighborhood. I mean, it's a neighborhood all around, but yeah. Side.
How about, Carol, for y'all, would you let people do short-term rental or long-term rental, or do they need to be the primary person who lives there? Oh, you're muted. We should have some kind of universal symbol. We can't hear you.
Okay, I think I'm now live. Okay. Yes. Actually, the first group that is going to come in and occupy this will make the rules, okay? But we do have because it's a co-op, we have some very basic bylaws that we're going by, co-opified bylaws for our nonprofit at the moment. But as soon as the co-op's formed, the actual co-op itself is formed, that first group will have the honors of getting to establish, some of those basic rules. But in our first model, the one that our, pie in the sky dream, we have this kind of tower structure where we were going to have short-term rentals. We, like you would have with a lot of timeshares, I guess, reciprocal agreements with other co-ops, around the world where people could come and stay, and then also have them, for at least for other income making opportunities. But yes, that was going to help underwrite our costs.
Well, that would be super cool if you could be reciprocal with Sweden or Norway or wherever else, and all these different places.
This one in Zurich, it is so much like what our concept is. So we were really thrilled when we eyeballed that. So,
have you visited yet?
No, but we have somebody who's in attendance right here. Don Young is supposed to be going overseas this summer, and he's got Zurich on his agenda to stop
Excellent.
by. I'm getting their newsletter now. Right now I still have to have everything interpreted for me. So I've got to figure out how to, I haven't done that yet, reaching out to somebody that can talk to me.
I love it. Well, I'm just looking through here to see if I have any more questions or answers. Teresa, have I missed anything, or do you think we've covered it pretty well?
I think you have covered it pretty well. What an awesome panel. Oh my gosh. And I've been taking
it really was
really good. Thank you so much.
So just in conclusion, if you guys just want to say one last thing, I think we'll sign off, and we'll go ahead and start with you, Carol. We'll go to Rebecca and then Rika. Just one last comment if you wanted to, anything we missed or anything you want to say.
Well, I was, trying to abbreviate some of my presentation. Oh gosh, I wish I could think of it now. But we've been at this for a while, and there are, it's being done. We just can't imagine why we can't do it here, or we haven't gotten it done yet. Let's put it that way. We just haven't been able to get it done yet.
Well, how could we help you? What would help you to get it done? Is there anything people on this call can do?
It's just been this week that it's started to gel with me, that it's just really important, I think, that the city begin to understand that some of their policies just stifle this kind of innovation. They just do. developers, I mean, they're kings, you know, they just, I hadn't realized it yet because I tend to identify with them. I feel like I'm a frustrated developer, land developer, because I want to do this, you know. And I guess because of what the headwinds we've recently run into, that's brought this to the forefront for us, that we feel like we're facing. This is our second time is trying to go into a development. We tried earlier on with the Grove at Shoal Creek. And so, so we had a trial run, you know, and we're running into some of the same things we ran into there. So, and
well, maybe this will be your lucky day and somebody will hear you or something will happen and it'll be kismet.
Well,
thank you, Carol, for being,
thank you.
Thank you for being on the panel. Rebecca, what would you like to say?
I would like to thank you for inviting me to participate. And I would also like to invite everyone to visit Village Farm Tiny Home Community. It's just off of Decker Lane in Austin, Texas. We do offer property tours. We also have Saturday open house. We're literally doubling in size. We've got another 3 years or so of growth, and we'd love to meet you in person and show you our community. And on top of that, you know, we're really being faced with a affordability crisis in Austin, Texas, and people who have lived here their entire lives are getting pushed out of the city, and it's heartbreaking. So anything that we can do to offer creative, innovative, and environmentally friendly solutions should be welcomed and embraced. And it's up to us as pioneers to really pave that path. And I appreciate all of you for being bold and opening yourself up to that opportunity.
Thank you, Rebecca. Should they make an appointment before they come out?
Due to COVID, we have made this visiting during the office hours by appointment only, because we can't just unlock the houses like we used to, but Saturdays are a little bit more loose. So our website is villagefarmaustin.com. There's a contact form and a phone number you could call if you prefer that method of communication. And there's a booking link, which provides you an opportunity to book a time slot where it's just the two of us, and we'll see the different models. There's about 6 different designs that we offer. They're all different configurations of 399 square feet. And it takes about 30 minutes, an hour to see the whole property. It's 30 acres just for Village Farm. So it's a pretty large community.
I think I spent about 2 hours on your website. So you can learn a lot on the website. You can see all the different floor plans and take tours and do all that. Yeah, I'm a goober.
It's a good website.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. And then Rika, if you would just close us out, what do you got to say?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks so much, Cindy, for asking me here. And thank you, AustinUP, for having us. I think this has been really informative. I loved the previous panel as well. They had a lot of good information. And I love my fellow panelists. I think that in order to really correct or start to correct the housing crisis in Austin, that we need a combination of all types of housing to really pinpoint and to really help with our housing. We need the tiny home communities. We need the co-ops. We need additional tiny homes in residential neighborhoods. So feel free to call me. I know my contact information is here, and don't forget that promotional code. Or if you just have questions and you want to email us, feel free to do that as well. Thank you so much. Hope this was informative and helpful.
I love it. Well, thanks, everybody. We'll see you next month. We're really excited about our topic, and we just look forward to you coming back each month for our forums. You're taking the summer off, but we'll have some more forums in the fall. Thank you, everyone.
Just a quick close. So the next day, sure. June 10th, 1 o'clock. The topic is respect and social inclusion. We'll talk about diversity and inclusion as we welcome older adults from diverse backgrounds into our community, because Austin still has one of the fastest growing populations of older adults. A lot of people are moving here. So we need to talk about how that's affecting us and how we can be more welcoming to our new neighbors. So thank you again for being here. Check the AustinUP website for updates, austinup.org. Because you are registered for this event, you are automatically on our list, so you will receive notes about future forums and Zoom information for those forums. So thank you very much, everybody.
Excellent.